Have you ever wondered what happened to Britain's old seaside resorts? Once packed with families on holiday, these towns were buzzing with laughter, donkey rides, and the smell of fish and chips drifting through the air. But as cheap flights and foreign package holidays took over in the 1970s and 80s, many of these once beloved places slowly slipped into decline. Today, they stand as faded echoes of their golden past, remembered fondly by older generations but rarely visited by younger ones. From Blackpool to Morecambe to Rhyl, these are the 10 seaside resorts that Brits once loved but have largely forgotten. Let's take a trip down memory lane to these coastal towns that time left behind. Blackpool was once the undisputed king of British seaside resorts, drawing millions of visitors every year throughout the 19th and 20th centuries. The Blackpool Tower, 3 piers, the pleasure beach, and the famous illuminations made it the ultimate working-class holiday destination. Families from Lancashire, Yorkshire, and beyond saved all year for their week in Blackpool, staying in guest houses along the Golden Mile and spending evenings in variety shows and dance halls. The town thrived on its reputation for affordable fun, candyfloss, sticks of rock, and endless entertainment. But when package holidays to Spain offered guaranteed sunshine for similar prices, Blackpool's dominance began to crumble. By the 1980s and 90s, visitor numbers had dropped dramatically, and the town struggled with a dated image. Though the pleasure beach still operates and the illuminations continue, Blackpool today attracts far fewer families than in its heyday, replaced by stag parties and day trippers rather than the week-long holidaymakers who once defined it. Scarborough proudly claims the title of Britain's first seaside resort, dating back to the 17th century when spa waters drew wealthy visitors seeking health cures. By the Victorian age, it had become the North's ultimate holiday destination, complete with grand hotels, theatres, amusement arcades, and bustling beaches. Families returned year after year, and Scarborough remained hugely popular through the mid-20th century, with its South Bay and North Bay offering different experiences for different classes. But the tide eventually turned when package holidays to Spain, Greece, and beyond offered guaranteed sunshine while Scarborough's fortunes declined. Its once grand South Bay pool was demolished, and the famous futurist theatre was pulled down in 2018, leaving a gap in the cultural landscape. Although Scarborough still attracts day trippers and events like its open-air theatre concerts, the mass summer crowds of its golden era are long gone, sitting now in the shadow of its own illustrious history. Few towns symbolise the rise and fall of the traditional British seaside quite like Great Yarmouth. At its height in the mid-20th century, this Norfolk resort was bursting with holidaymakers, filling its piers, fairgrounds, and endless rows of guest houses. Families flocked for donkey rides, sticks of rock, and evenings in the theatres, with the town's 2 piers offering constant entertainment. Yet as cheap flights abroad drew people away from the 1970s onwards, Great Yarmouth entered a long decline, with many hotels shutting down and parts of the town becoming run down. Despite attempts at regeneration, including a restored seafront and its famous pleasure beach still operating, it hasn't recaptured its past glory. Visitor numbers remain far below their peak, and its reputation has suffered compared to flashier resorts overseas. For locals, Great Yarmouth's downturn has been hard, with poverty and unemployment rising in areas that once thrived on tourism. Skegness on the Lincolnshire coast was once advertised as "so bracing," a slogan that perfectly captured its appeal for hardy British holidaymakers seeking fresh sea air and simple pleasures. In the early to mid-20th century, it was hugely popular, especially with the arrival of the United Kingdom's first Butlins holiday camp in 1936. Families loved the mix of sandy beaches, amusements and affordable fun, with Billy Butlin's camp revolutionising the British holiday experience by offering all-inclusive entertainment. But like many other resorts, Skegness declined as sun-seekers turned to Spain and beyond from the 1970s onwards. Its once-packed promenade now sees fewer crowds, and many of the attractions feel dated compared to modern holiday expectations. The Butlins Resort still operates, but it has changed into more of a budget family destination rather than the groundbreaking getaway it once was, with Skegness no longer the thriving holiday giant of its heyday. For generations, Southend-on-Sea was the go-to escape for Londoners seeking a quick seaside fix without travelling far. Famous for having the world's longest pleasure pier stretching over a mile into the Thames estuary, it offered everything a day tripper could want. Trains from the capital once carried thousands every weekend during the 1950s and 60s, filling its beaches, arcades and funfairs with Cockney voices and laughter. But the rise of budget airlines and package deals abroad gradually stole away its visitors, with Southend's golden years giving way to decades of decline. While regeneration projects like the Adventure Island theme park and cultural investments have tried to bring life back, Southend today is a shadow of its former self. It still attracts some families, but not in the same numbers or with the same reputation it once held, representing for many the nostalgic memory of cheap traditional seaside days out rather than a destination to book a full holiday. In its heyday, Rhyl was the jewel of the North Wales coast, a magnet for working-class families seeking affordable seaside fun. Famous for its vast fairgrounds, golden beaches, and the bustling Ocean Beach amusement park, it was especially popular with families from Liverpool, Manchester, and the Midlands. Thousands came during the summer months throughout the 1950s and 60s, with the seafront thriving with arcades, theatres, and family attractions, creating a sense of endless excitement. But by the late 20th century, Rhyl's fortunes collapsed dramatically when foreign holidays became affordable, and the Ocean Beach Funfair was demolished in the early 2000s. Hotels shut their doors, and the town gained an unfortunate reputation for decline and deprivation that it struggles to shake even today. Regeneration projects have tried to breathe life back into Rhyl, including a modern waterfront and retail parks, but its image as a holiday hotspot has never truly recovered, standing now as a cautionary tale of changing holiday trends. Few towns capture the bittersweet tale of seaside decline as powerfully as Morecambe, once a thriving Lancashire resort that drew huge crowds in the early 20th century. It boomed with its promenade, grand hotels, and the legendary Frontierland theme park that opened in 1956, becoming the pride of the northwest coast. The iconic Art Deco Midland Hotel stood as a symbol of glamour and sophistication, and families from across the north made annual pilgrimages for sun, sand, and entertainment on Morecambe Bay. But when package holidays abroad took over in the 1970s, Morecambe's fortunes collapsed almost overnight. Frontierland closed in 1999, attractions were demolished, and the seafront fell silent, with the town becoming synonymous with decline for decades. Recent regeneration, including the restoration of the Midland Hotel and proposals for the Eden Project North, shows hope for revival, but Morecambe remains far removed from its heyday, making it the ultimate example of dramatic seaside decline. Weymouth on the Dorset coast was once the jewel of Georgian seaside tourism, with royal approval cementing its fashionable status. King George III himself holidayed there in the late 18th century, making it the place to be seen for wealthy visitors. Its sandy beach, promenade, and rows of pastel-coloured Georgian terraces drew in generations of visitors, and for much of the 20th century, it thrived as a traditional British seaside getaway with donkey rides and Punch and Judy shows. But as times changed, so did Weymouth's fortunes, with its popularity dipping from the 1980s onwards as people turned to overseas holidays and investment in attractions slowed. Though it still sees some tourism, especially due to its location near the Jurassic Coast World Heritage Site, Weymouth no longer carries the prestige or volume of visitors it once did. For many Brits, Weymouth is a name from the past rather than a place to spend their summer holidays, its historic charm remaining but its status as a national holiday hotspot long faded. Whitley Bay, once the shining star of the northeast coast, had its golden era in the mid-20th century when it was the playground of Newcastle and the surrounding industrial towns. Families flocked to its Spanish city complex, where funfairs, arcades and dance halls gave the town a festive energy that rivaled any southern resort. Its sweeping beach and promenade made it a staple of British summer holidays, with the distinctive white dome of Spanish City becoming an iconic landmark visible for miles. But the decline was sharp and brutal from the 1980s onwards, with Spanish City shutting down in 2000, many hotels closing, and Whitley Bay slipping into obscurity. Attempts at regeneration came slowly, with parts of the seafront left derelict for decades, becoming symbols of forgotten prosperity. Though the Spanish City Dome has been restored as a cultural landmark, the crowds have not returned in the same numbers, with Whitley Bay now more of a quiet residential coastal town than the booming resort it once was. Clacton-on-Sea once stood as the pride of the Essex coast, attracting thousands of holidaymakers during its post-war boom years. Families came for its grand pier, amusement arcades and theatres, while the nearby Butlins holiday camp kept the area buzzing through the summer months. The town thrived throughout the 1950s and 60s, with its position as London's closest major resort, ensuring a steady stream of visitors arriving by train and coach. But from the 1970s onwards, Clacton faced a sharp decline as the advent of foreign holidays drained its visitor base, leaving its pier and seafront to slowly deteriorate. The once iconic Butlins camp closed in 1983, a symbolic marker of its fading status that shocked locals who couldn't imagine the town without it. Efforts have been made to modernise, with the pier revamped in recent years, but Clacton has never returned to its former glory, now quieter and often more associated with retirement communities than family seaside fun, its golden age surviving only in fading photographs and memories. These 10 seaside resorts once defined the British summer holiday, representing affordable fun, family tradition, and the simple pleasure of a week by the sea. From Blackpool's Tower to Morecambe's Bay, from Scarborough's beaches to Rhyl's funfairs, they were the destinations that generations saved for, returned to year after year, and filled with memories that lasted a lifetime. But the rise of package holidays, guaranteed Mediterranean sunshine, and changing tastes left them behind, transforming bustling promenades into quiet streets and grand hotels into boarded-up shells. While some have found new identities and others cling to hopes of regeneration, none have recaptured the glory days when being British meant spending a week at the seaside with fish and chips, candyfloss, and sandy sandwiches. These resorts remind us that nostalgia is powerful, but it can't turn back time or bring back the crowds that once made them the pride of the British coast. If this journey through faded seaside glory brought back memories of childhood holidays, penny arcades, and the smell of salt air mixed with chips, give it a like and subscribe for more trips down memory lane. Until next time, remember, those were different days, and those were different holidays.